Well, where do I start? So I think the last one that I recorded, I was talking about trying to hunker down, figure out this AI agent coding / software engineering, MCP servers, context engineering, strategies for context engineering, proprietary ones, and ones that other people have made. Yeah, so I spent the last week probably since then, maybe a little bit less than a week, absolutely sticking my head into this shit. So, first of all, I've been testing out the Codex CLI, like making applications and trying to figure out the system design and architecture that it's making, because it's a better software engineer than I am. So I'm learning from it as it makes things. I'm making more and more complex things. And as I make more complex things, it requires more tools. But it tells me the tools that it needs. And it makes sense because those tools are integral to software developers. But I don't know about them because I don't know what they do until I find a use case. So as I'm trying to make more and more complicated things, it's going to be important to try to learn from the AI, the way it structures things, and the whole process of software engineering. So, yeah, I think that I've learned an insane amount in the last week. I think truly that the coding agents is a paradigm shift from, people like me with a technical background, but I basically just knew Python, and it gives me the opportunity to bring my systems mind, my problem solving's mind, all these, like the architecture of how I see an application and what it should look like and what it should do. I could bring that to life without needing many, many weeks to figure it out and then test and then actually run it and then go through this whole entire process of software engineering that for the projects that I'm doing usually would require a team, or else it would take forever and you need to be a very good software engineer. So I feel bad. I feel bad because I'm doing stuff that I probably shouldn't be able to do. But, I'm committed to learning exactly how it works so that I can leverage it in the best way possible. Pretty much the recurring theme here that I keep coming back to is these really, really good software engineers in videos. People that are involved in like literally OpenAI and Anthropic and Cursor. Some of them know what's going on with the agentic coding side of things, but most of them have no idea. And especially like senior software devs have continuously put down agentic coding as it's going to get stuck on a bug and then it's not going to do things right, blah, 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 blah. Well, in like the last month, agentic coding does do things right with minimal bugs. Like you can just tell it what to do and it will ship a full application that works exactly how you want. I've done it like 4 or 5 times this week, and each one I got more and more complicated. And yeah, it took a little bit of pushing along, and sometimes it got caught in loops a few times. Sometimes I had to go in and try to troubleshoot myself and debug it because it just wasn't getting it. But it took me a day to make these applications, right? And this agentic coding comes with already my ChatGPT membership. But yeah, I feel like a fraud. But at the same time, it's very, very powerful because now all of a sudden I can bring anything I want to life. And it's not like these things are getting worse. It's literally only goes uphill from here. So that I can hold my end of the bargain by figuring out how to engineer the context properly so that it can be utilized for the subjectively best output. So basically it doing exactly what you want in the best way possible in the least amount of token context that you can give it. So you want to be able to give it these super dense orthogonal pieces of context that are going to be able, that don't have very much overlap, so that you could take 2 pieces of orthogonal context and essentially create a space with it, because they're orthogonal. And that's going to be the best way of engineering the components or vectors of whatever your idea is. So the idea of orthogonal pieces of context, so that you can actually make like an actual, I mean, I guess it's a vector space, kind of, if we're going to talk about it in math terms. And there's an optimal space, which is made up of orthogonal pieces of context. And if they are, in fact, orthogonal, and the context within them is maximized for the amount of tokens that it is contained within that context, then it's going to output your idea to the best subjective ability that it has. And once you hold up that end of the bargain for yourself, you can make the transition into, or it will make the transition into getting better, because they're constantly training models. And it seems to me, from what I've heard, that they're starting to really focus on this coding stuff, because Anthropic really went full bore at the coding stuff, and ChatGPT is trying to now pull its weight. And it's done a very good job. They're putting out updates all the time. And there's even stuff that I haven't even used, like the Agents SDK, which is like, you could do TypeScript or Python framework for agents that you want to do things, or how you want them to be, like a history agent who's, has access to web search tools and particular websites that have history, and it's going to be able to help you with history. That's an agent, and that's using Agents SDK. And I haven't even gone into that yet. I haven't even barely gone into the MCP server stuff yet, and it's still so fucking powerful. So, yeah, once again, I just think it's an absolute paradigm shift in software development. It becomes less software engineering over time. I mean, by default, you're doing less and less low-level stuff. And we've come to the point where it's just, you just do it in English. You have the idea, and instead of being the engineer, you're the architect. And the engineering portion, you offload to the agentic coders through whatever agentic coding system you use. I use Codex. And yeah, it allows you to basically instantaneously bring ideas to life, so you don't have to wait, which is massive, because say you're an entrepreneur and you have, a need for a particular application, but you don't have to pay a software engineer anymore. I mean, right now you might need to, because you want it to be set up properly, but looking forward in the future, it's like these agentic coders are going to be able to just handle it. So, yeah, talk to my one buddy who has been doing this stuff, and he's just excited as I am, and he thinks it is also a paradigm shift. Similar to what you saw, like, with the internet, essentially. Like, obviously, yeah, the AI stuff was big when it first came out, say ChatGPT 3.5, ChatGPT 4, when people were like, holy shit, like, this can do shit better than I can. And there's a lot of hype around it at that time, rightfully so. But it didn't really accomplish tasks better than humans at that point. It was just like people could see the writing on the wall. Well, I think now the writing has been on the wall for a while, and we're getting to that point where it's just going to start taking over stuff for us. And that brings me to the idea of you can be with it, or you can get left behind, because I just don't see a world that I can compete with AI. So over time, you just need to learn how to integrate and use it in your life, because it is the most powerful tool in the world. And it is increasingly the most powerful tool in the world, because this is a dynamic equation, and one side of the equation I don't even control. So, yeah, I think that's my thoughts on the agentic coding stuff. I don't have any particular, products or stuff that I want to show or anything like that. I'm mostly just trying to learn right now, spending all my time watching what it's doing and asking it questions, and looking at the folder structure for a repo of an application that I'm making. There's, for instance, very simply, there's a front end and there's a back end, but those are actually separate folders. And then within those, there's different components, the modules that you're going to use in terms of languages, and how you have to import those before, or at least is what it's doing, so that you have the environment set up so that you can launch the application, because it needs all these languages. It's programmed in these languages, but you need the modules to be able to actually run that code. So then I get into like the Docker stuff. It got me into this open source software called Docker, which is free unless you're making a ton of money. And it was so useful to set up environments, which is like a container of different code and API keys and stuff like that. It allows you to save those containers. So if it works really well, you can always go back to that environment that you have saved with all the keys. So that was like a breakthrough. I feel like I'm speed running software engineering, but I'm not actually a software engineer. I'm a software architect, and I am using agentic coding to be the actual engineer. I think this is the future, but I also think that in a year or two, it will get so good to the point where anyone's going to be able to do it. So it doesn't matter if you're, regular Joe and you need an application done for your company, you're going to be able to do it because there's nothing stopping you, because the AI and the agents, the agentic coders are going to be able to bring to life whatever you want and not make any mistakes and just be able to do the whole thing for you. So there's this short period of time right now where the rich people, this is so odd, rich people never do this. The rich people have gotten on board by giving us these incredible products that cost way less than the value that you get out of them, like a million X. And they're doing this because they have to compete with the other companies, and there's this unbelievable amount of money being pumped into it for this race to AGI. So until we get there, there's this opportunity where I get to use these billionaires' money, the OpenAI for me. It's essentially taking the cost of all this incredible technology so that I could just use it. And there's just never, ever going to be another time like that. And like I said, it's not going to last forever, because anyone's going to be able to do it soon, and people will just eventually start to catch on. But this leads me to another point here is like, I just can't get over the fact that legitimate software engineers, they're just not there. They don't want to give it a chance, obviously, because it's replacing them, like slowly replacing them. Let's say you replace junior devs right now with what they have. I mean, I can understand why you'd be upset, but to outright say like, oh, it sucks and it's never going to replace coders is absolutely fucking ridiculous, and it's going to come back to bite them in the ass. It already is, because someone like me would have had to hire somebody or spend years learning how to do it myself, which is just not realistic. But now I can just do it by myself without the software engineer. It's fucking cheating. That's why I feel a little bit fraudulent doing this shit. But I have to remind myself, like, this is what happens when you get paradigm shifts in technology. And this is, I think, the biggest paradigm shift in technology, I mean, since the internet, but like maybe even bigger than the internet. So, yeah, I feel bad for the software engineers who are incentivized to not take it seriously, because they're going to miss out on the most incredible opportunity to make themselves. They could be better than me if they were using it, but since they're going to fall behind, it just doesn't matter. They're never going to get on board with it for the most part. And, there's a small community online that I follow, but it's a very small community. And every time they talk to the experts have not a fucking clue how powerful this stuff is. Like, it feels like a very niche, very small community that knows what's happening. And also, to be fair, this is like really before you couldn't trust the agentic coders to do stuff, and they would run into issues. That's why I didn't like to do it before. But now, say 6 months after that, when agentic coding really became a thing, these new models came out, and they're just like that. They can do the whole thing, front end to back end, all the way through. And there's only a matter of time before they're going to be able to make enterprise solutions, or solve real world issues. So I want to be able to ride that wave and use this opportunity of being gifted the most incredible piece of technology ever and leverage it to make myself not broke. So today, I need, like, I don't know if I've mentioned this in the past. I probably have. I need to start making money. I can't just keep learning. And so thought about it today, like, I might just fucking sell all my material possessions and just fully commit to making this happen because I don't have any time to waste. I am beyond broke and I need to make these opportunities happen. That's why I've spent so much time this week trying to figure this out, because I see the power and the value in what I'm doing. It's a matter of bringing it to life. So, yeah, it is this 2-year period. There's never going to be one like it. And I am the only one I can depend on. I can't trust anybody else to do this. I need to do it myself. And, yeah. So here we are. I got to figure this out. Hope you enjoyed that. So I made this studio, as you can see. I'm using a fucking GoPro camera to record this right now because I don't want to bring out the big camera. But this was a entrepreneurial project that I did with a friend. We created this from scratch and it turned out pretty fucking sick. It's awesome. I can shoot podcasts for myself here. I have a whole bunch that I just need to post online. But we need to get the advertising up, and I need to do some calendar syncing so that we can schedule so we can schedule appointments, like to rent the space here to do podcast. You do whatever the fuck you want here, but we got lights and we got cameras, so just rent out the space. We need to do that quickly. So I need to learn how to do advertising and stuff. But I also, like I said, the Google Calendar sync. So we're going to have a calendar because we're advertising in multiple places, Gigster, PureSpace, Shopify. And so we need to have a way to sync in terms of rental times, because you don't want double booking or anything like that. So if you can sync all those 3 applications, those services, those advertisement services to one calendar, then we're going to be pretty much ready to go. We did a production shoot and we got all the advertising material ready to go. So, yeah. Last thing, I think I've never, ever in my life felt, I don't know if agency is the right word, but simply not giving a fuck about anything else except for this singular goal of succeeding. I've forgone everything for the last 9 days, and I was building up before that to reach this goal, and I think that if I continue at this pace, I can succeed very quickly. And I've never felt like this in my life. I don't even know if it's motivating because it's very lonely, but it's simply what needs to be done. I just need to work at all times. Even if I'm not working, I need to be learning. Everything that I do, every waking hour needs to be used towards that goal, like of making enough money so I can become wealthy enough to be able to protect myself when times get hard, which they will. So, yeah, I think that's reasonable. I'm going to get to work now, probably for the next 3 hours. It's 5:30, so if I can get till 8:30 and figure out this calendar sync and advertisement, and then maybe spend like a couple more hours after that working on some of the software engineering or architecting, actually. That's what I'm going to call it. Agentic software architecture. And, so I think 5 more hours today and then try to get to bed. I think that'll be continuing on track to the goal. So, cheers. I don't even know what I'm going to call this, but I found a word. The word is, so advanced context engineering is the place that I want to be focusing on, which I've been partly focusing on, because that's how you get the most out of the agentic coding. And ACE is just a great word for a company or a name for anything. So I think I'll just start calling things that I'm doing ACE, like ACE podcast, ACE architecture, ACE engineering, ACE, whatever. But I think I'll call this, I don't know. I think about Flux, but Flux doesn't sound nearly as good as ACE. ACE capitalize A-C-N-E, all capitals, ACE podcast. Well, we'll see you probably tomorrow. I'll give you an update on where things are.